All right, welcome back to the final part of my little trilogy here on this video about how if you define God a special way, you don't have to prove it. We were in the middle of talking about the thing that we were talking about at the end of part 2. You know, you watched it probably, maybe. I doubt it. I'm not that great at this YouTube thing, am I? This is not a strong opener. This is not going to bring new people in. Oh well.
So now you're making your problem even bigger.
What problem? I don't have a problem. I guess other than that you're bothering me with your nonsense. But it's not that big of a problem.
Because you're saying that there is something totally unnecessary, like the universe.
Has that even been conceded? It might have been, depending who you're talking to, but then it sounds like you're talking about some specific person and trying to generalize it to everyone, when really you should probably just be responding directly to that person that you're talking about, because if it really is just about the specific things this one person told you, that's not really that broadly applicable. I don't see why you're painting with such a broad brush as to make a video about atheists in general.
That not only came up without anybody creating it, or any cause creating it without any cause, but that was always there and will always be there.
I mean, I agree that it's kind of jumping the gun to say stuff like that. Again, I think it's worth considering. I think that a theory that takes that kind of position would be interesting, but to say that is how it is, yeah, it's a bit much. I agree.
So a totally unnecessary thing that there's no reason, logical reason why it's there.
No logical reason why it's there. That is, the structure of logic does not dictate that it must be there. Okay, but maybe there's a physical reason why it's there. Not a cause in the temporal sense of like it started at some point and it wasn't there before, but in more of a hierarchical way, in the sense of the reason it's there precedes it in terms of its fundamentalness. Or maybe there's no reason and it's a brute fact that it's there. It just kind of is there. Or maybe this person thinks the universe is necessary, who knows?
Actually is there, but not only it's there, has always been there, and will always be there. What?
Well, there's my thumbnail.
What?
Shocked noises. What? The ultimate form of argument. No one could possibly stand against such intellectual might.
This is so illogical, so preposterous.
Why? Eternal existence is a separate property from philosophical necessity. You could say that necessary things always exist, but that doesn't mean that other things don't. Maybe you have some reason why you think this is preposterous, but you haven't said it. You just made googly eyes and said, "What?" It's your claim, you have the burden of proof, and you have no arguments to back it up, and so I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to come up with arguments that you might say or that you might think. I'm not going to do your job for you. It's your burden.
That really, if you think into this, believing something so irrational, it's such a huge leap of faith that it will make any leap of faith in the religion world look little.
Okay, and what's your argument for this? You're saying this as if it's a fact, and I guarantee you're going to move right on after this with no justification for it, giving no reason for anyone to think it's a fact, because your entire video is about you running away from your responsibility to convince other people of the things you say if you want them to believe you. You want gasps and funny faces to be enough to convince everyone of the truth of everything you say, which, I mean, that works for me, because then you'll convince no one, and I find that hilarious, and I guess that's the end of that sentence. Okay, have it your way.
You're telling me that something totally unnecessary, like this chair or like this universe, the matter and energy that is in the universe has always been there and will always be there, even if there's no reason why it should be there.
If something's not philosophically necessary, if it's not a logical contradiction for something not to exist, that doesn't mean there's no reason it's there. There can be a reason that it's there. It's just not a logical contradiction if it's not there. These are your definitions. We're operating on your definition of necessity. Why do you keep forgetting what it is? You're applying it in ways that it has no applicability.
And you
Me?
pretend that I should buy into this?
No. I'm not the one trying to convince you of anything about the universe. You're the one trying to convince me about the universe. Did you forget this already? For me, this video feels like an eternity, and probably for the audience too. But from your perspective, it hasn't even been 15 minutes. How do you not remember what the video's about? The point is, you don't want to have the burden of proof when you try to convince people God exists. The key point being when you try to convince people, not when they try to convince you. What anyone wants you to buy into is not relevant to this conversation. But yeah, if somebody else wants to convince you of something they think, they're going to have to back it up. And if they don't manage to convince you, they don't manage to convince you. So be it. They have the burden of proof, and they can take that on and try to convince you if they want to or not. Just like you can. And like you're desperately trying to avoid having to do when you're trying to convince other people.
No. Why? Because your claim, once I define God as I define, you see that your claim becomes totally unreasonable and illogical.
Says you, convince me. Waggling your eyes around in your skull and making funny noises is not going to do the job. Now, I understand, whatever claim or rejection of a claim or whatever it is you're complaining about, you think that it's illogical and unreasonable and ridiculous. Okay. Thank you for informing me. I understand your position on the matter now. It means nothing. What does it do for me? If you refuse to take the responsibility to convince me that that's the case, who cares? It means nothing. It has no impact on anything. It doesn't change my mind. It doesn't change reality. It doesn't change anything meaningful. So you might as well have just not bothered. The entire point of the video is you don't give enough of a damn to try to convince other people of the things you think. And that's fine. That's often the case with me too. I rarely take on the burden of really trying to convince someone of something I think because it takes a lot of time, and usually I just don't care enough. If other people think things that are different from what I think, I usually don't really mind that much. When I do mind is if it has some serious impact on my life or something important to me. Aside from that, I really don't usually care what people think so much that I have to spend a lot of my time trying to change their minds. Sometimes I get in a bit of a mood and I do it just for fun, but that's about it. And if you're the same way, fine, just do that or don't do that. You don't have to make a whole video about it. You don't have to make a big issue out of it. Nobody cares. Nobody really wants to hear what you have to say anyway.
And the problem is not proving the existence or not the existence of something. The problem is how reasonable your claim is.
Problem in what sense? In relation to what? I agree, if you have an unreasonable position, it can be a problem in a certain way, but how do you mean it's a problem?
Saying that the universe that is totally unnecessary was there always, will always be there for no reason.
Nobody said no reason. Not even the fictional person you're arguing with.
Is a statement that to me is totally illogical.
Okay, a statement to you seems illogical. Cool, so argue that point. It doesn't seem like anyone else's problem but yours.
Totally irrational.
Okay, also that, same response as before?
Totally unreasonable.
Same response a third time?
I don't buy into that.
I know. You've said so. What's that got to do with me or anyone else? Nobody cares.
If you claim something like that is totally irrational and illogical and unreasonable like that, I'm sorry, but the burden of proof is on you.
Yeah, if I claim it, the burden of proof is on me. Not because it's unreasonable and irrational and illogical, but because I claimed it. The burden is on me to prove my own claims. And likewise, if you claim God exists, under whichever definition you want to pick, the burden is on you to support your claims. And we go right back to the start of the video and the basic features of normal human conversation.
The burden of proof is on whoever makes the most unreasonable claim.
Fucking no! The burden of proof is on whoever makes the claim. Any claim. We're not going to spend 6 hours arguing about whose claim is more ridiculous from any one person's perspective. We're not going to turn to you and say, hey, Mr. Theist, man, can you tell me which of these two claims is the more ridiculous one so we know who has to argue for their own position and who just gets their position believed for free with no effort? No. If you make a claim, you support it. If I make a claim, I support it. If I don't want to bother for some reason, if I don't feel prepared to do so, or if I don't feel like I have the time, or if I don't have the interest, or if I really just don't care what you think, then I just won't do it. That's fine. Even if I make a claim, I'm not obligated to actually bother backing it up. I'm not going to go to jail if I don't back up my claims. And neither are you. But don't expect people to just insta-convert to your religion if you say, well, anything other than my beliefs is unreasonable. I mean, go ahead and say it. It's just not going to work. The burden of proof isn't something applied lopsidedly from, objective reality onto whoever holds the objectively more reasonable position. It's not like everyone but you has the burden to support their claims, and then you have no burden to support anything you say, and everyone else has the burden to instantly believe everything you say. And if you think they do, okay, you're entitled to your belief, but just don't expect people to actually buy into it. I expect an awful lot of people will see this as very illogical, unreasonable, and irrational. And so maybe this magical supernatural burden of proof will shift right back onto you as a result.
And in this case, the most unreasonable claim is claiming that the universe just exists just because.
Okay, so that's a claim you're making. Personally, my position is that this claim is silly, and your claim is at least equally silly. So we have a difference in opinion. I'm not really interested in trying to move you towards my position. I don't think it's going to work, and I'm probably going to forget that you exist right after this video's done, so I really don't give a damn. Maybe you don't either, although it kind of seems like you do. So, if you are interested in me changing my opinion, make an argument. Accept the burden of proof. Change my mind.
This definition of God also is bulletproof to that silly question that usually atheists tend to ask.
This time at least I know where you're going.
Oh, but if God created all that exists, if God is the cause of everything that exists, who created God?
Right, and your response is to say, actually, God's necessary. Nothing else gets to be necessary, but God does, because I defined him that way. And then the atheist can say, okay, I defined the universe that way, and then you can say, what? What? That's ridiculous. That's irrational. Yeah, so just blatant special pleading, complete stupidity. Convinces nobody because it's not even designed to convince anybody. It's just meant to make people stop asking questions about why this God thing would even be there. But leave the question open for everything else because you find that useful. I'm noticing a pattern in this video, which is that you really want to avoid any situation where you'll have to actually justify your beliefs, and you try your damnedest to shift all that responsibility onto others, which isn't just a pattern in your behavior, it's a pattern I notice very often. And for me, that's just another reason to believe that this God thing is probably just wishful thinking and fantasy.
Right?
Right.
Well.
If
you follow the definition of God.
Yeah, any necessary uncaused first cause. So quantum vacuum fluctuations. Unthinking perturbations in the fundamental ground of reality. That's God now. I mean, I don't believe that either, but I find it more believable than the mindy one, so I guess I like your definition better, even if it does seem like you're just trying to avoid having to justify the harder to defend aspects of your God.
You will not ask this question because I define God as that necessary uncaused cause.
Yes, and therefore you won't ask, why is God there at all? It's all very convenient, isn't it? Okay, so the physical reality underlying the universe is necessary. It's uncaused. It's the first cause. There you go. Another thing I don't believe, but it sounds a lot more reasonable than slapping a mind on it. You good with that? Is that God? That's all you think when you hear the word God. Nothing else. Apropos of nothing, this guy runs a Christian YouTube channel, but apparently he'd be totally satisfied believing that God's just quantum fields or something. That seems believable.
God is necessary and therefore uncaused. Remember the 2 + 2 = 4 is there all the time. Okay.
I don't think 2 + 2 = 4 is uncaused. Within abstract mathematics, that's caused by the structure of the logical system we've devised. And as applied to reality, like if you take 2 apples and 2 more apples, it's caused by the nature and regularities of existence. Yeah, you could say it's not caused in like a sequential time-like order, but that's not all the word cause means. It can also just mean a deeper reality from which something emerges, which, like I said, I don't know the explanation for the universe, and I wouldn't dream of trying to say it's this way or it's that way. But if I really had to put my money on something, I would say that the universe, or at least something like it, is probably an inevitable emergence from the fundamental nature of what reality is, whatever that happens to be. I wouldn't put any sort of first cause on it because, like I said, I think that's really very old-fashioned thinking. It puts time and causation on a pedestal in a way that treats our kind of macro experience of reality as the most fundamental way things are, which I don't think is true. See, at this point, like I say, if I had to gamble, that's where I'd put my money. But who knows? Now, if you want to say that in that idea, the fundamental physical nature of reality somehow meets your definition of God, fine, have at it. Like I say, you can change the definition of God to whatever you want. Change the definition to God is a salad fork, and here's a salad fork. Now you believe in God. Childish nonsense, but you're more than welcome to do it if you want to.
Who created 2 + 2 = 4? Nobody created that.
That's interesting. I've spoken to a lot of Christians who told me that God created that. But no, apparently God and also 2 + 2 = 4 are necessary. There are elements of reality that God had no say in. Things beyond him that are necessary regardless of what he thinks about it, regardless of whether he even exists. And apparently there are features of this, in your words, totally unnecessary universe, where anything about the universe could be different, which can't be different. Features like if you take two objects and you put them together with two other objects, you have four objects. This is an aspect of this supposedly totally unnecessary universe which is completely necessary, such that it exists independent of God and God himself can't change it. That's interesting.
It's there because it's true.
And you don't see the problem with that, saying it's there because it's true? It's not there at all. It's not a thing. There's no there there. And it's also not just true because it's true. It's true because it's consistent with the system of mathematics. And is it really necessarily true in all possible worlds? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't really want to talk too much about the philosophy of math, and I want to talk even less about what's true about other possible worlds. Let's just keep going.
God is not there because somebody created God. He's there because God is true. Because the intrinsic essence of God is that of existing.
Okay, so the intrinsic essence of the pyramid in the desert is that of existing. You think this can apply to God, but you don't think this can apply to the pyramid or to the universe. Why? Because it makes you get wide eyes and gasp?
All right? So even that question becomes a totally silly question.
I'm becoming all too familiar with silly questions.
The other objection they can have is we don't yet know exactly what caused the universe, but maybe in the future we will.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
We're going to find the perfect equation that is going to explain why the universe came into being.
Equation for that? Yeah, maybe it'd be convincing. Who knows? It's just speculation right now, so who cares?
Fine.
Great.
Fine.
Great!
I'm a physicist too.
Okay. So how do you do your physics? When you put out a paper, do you just write, like, all the other physicists have to believe what I say because I don't have the burden of proof? You do. Your ideas are all stupid and ridiculous. How dare you ask me to justify my experiment in this paper?
I studied all these things, okay? And I had all these ideas in my head when I started to, find the perfect equation, right? The equation of God, the equation that explains everything.
You were trying to find the equation of God in physics? Who was funding this research?
It's great, and it's amazing that scientists are trying to find this fundamental equation that explains everything. But again, you're not gonna be able, even if that is true, and one day we're gonna get to know the fundamental equation that explains everything that we see. Then again, you have to ask the question, well, where does the equation come from?
Well, from you. It's your way of describing the regularities in nature. That's why humans have to make it. It's kind of the equivalent of, like, writing a book about what you see around you, except in the language of math.
Where did this equation come from?
Didn't you just say that?
Is this equation necessary?
No. The nature it describes might be, but the equation itself obviously isn't. It was made up by humans as a mathematical tool to enable predictions.
No physics equation. No equation in physics is necessary.
Yeah, obviously, there's squiggles on a piece of paper. That says nothing about the reality being described. You're pretending like the one thing is the other. It's not. It's funny though, because you've spent a lot of this video saying the equation 2 + 2 = 4 is necessary. That's a physics equation. It describes an aspect of the universe which you say is necessary. It describes the universe in many different ways. If an object has a mass of 2 grams and then it gains 2 grams, now it weighs 4 grams. This is physics. When you apply 2 + 2 = 4 to observations of the universe, you get a realistic result. Just like when you apply E = mc² to observations of the universe, you get a realistic result. Both are true as abstractions within math, and both describe consistencies within the universe when applied knowledgeably. It's as much derived from the observation of the physical universe as any other equation in physics. So why do you consider this equation to be necessarily true and descriptive of reality, but the other one's not? Because 2 + 2 = 4 has a somewhat broader application? That can't be it. Okay.
Again, why? Because it has very specific parameters. They're not necessary. They could be completely different than what they are. Again, the speed of light.
Okay, the speed of light is a property of the universe. You have no idea if this could be different. You can change it to whatever you want in your little squiggles on your little piece of paper. Just like you can write down on a piece of paper, God does not exist. But that doesn't change anything about the reality. It says nothing about whether the actual nature being described is necessary or contingent or whatever. You're trying to equate the description with the reality. These are not the same.
The charge of an electron, a gravitational constant, cosmological constant. Again, right?
Possibly right. It's possible that all these things can change, that nature permits for these things to be otherwise. It's also possible that they can't change, that nature does not permit for them to be otherwise. I don't care if you're a physicist. You don't have that answer, because no physicist has that answer.
So no matter what the equation it may be, and we don't even know if there is such an equation, but maybe we'll find one day. But still, you have not solved anything.
It seems like you would have at least solved something. What's the point otherwise?
That equation itself is unnecessary. It could be a different equation with different parameters.
Sure, you could describe the same reality in a different way, but the reality would still be what it is. Whatever it is what it is. Can that be otherwise? Can it not? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. A lot of people say they know. They'll make all kinds of ridiculous assertions about all the things they think they know, like you've done this entire video. But I don't think you know, and you haven't tried to convince me that you know, because you're terrified of the burden of proof.
Where did that equation come from?
Didn't you ask that like twice already?
You see, if that's your position, you sound like those ancient civilization that thought that the Earth was standing there because there was some animal, like an elephant, under that would keep the Earth from not falling.
Yeah, man, ancient civilizations, they are stupid. Imagine having beliefs shared by ancient civilizations. I'm joking.
And if you ask them, well, but what is keeping the elephant from not falling? Well, there would be another animal.
No, I would never be so silly as that. I define it as necessary that the elephant doesn't fall. And now you don't have to ask silly questions like what holds the elephant up, because dummy, it's defined as being necessary that the elephant stays up. I've defined away the problem, so why are you asking me?
Okay. And a giraffe, maybe. Okay, I'm making it up.
A giraffe could never hold up an elephant. This is getting too fantastical for me now.
Well, but what is the giraffe?
I don't know. You tell me.
Why is the giraffe not falling? Oh, because there's a tiger there.
Come on. A tiger could never hold up a giraffe and an elephant. Look at my eyes. Listen to what I do. What? See, it's ridiculous. Only an idiot would believe this.
Right? And you will go on and on until you were like, stop asking.
Yeah. I feel like this line of questioning should stop immediately after the giraffe.
Okay, because you have to stop at a certain point.
Well, no, you don't have to. Like, you might have to stop for a snack once in a while. You might stop a little longer when you die of old age. But if you really want to, you can spend your life doing this, I guess.
You cannot keep putting unnecessary cause, right, to explain what exists, because at the end of the day, it becomes silly.
Oh, it became silly long ago. You made this video. Things being silly does not seem to be a problem for you. Let's not pretend it is now.
Okay.
You
have to stop somewhere if you want to make sense of your argument. Otherwise, you're gonna sound very silly.
Well, what's making you sound silly isn't that you don't stop somewhere. What's making you sound silly is you think the world's built on top of a giant pile of animals standing on each other's backs, with no evidence. If you stop somewhere and you say, actually, the giraffe is the bottom animal, there's no animal below that, that hasn't fixed anything. You don't suddenly sound not silly anymore. And honestly, if you just say, well, that's the bottom animal, there's just nothing below that, that is the bottom of what? Reality? The pile of animals that forms the reality underneath the earth? I think that's even sillier, because what are you implying is actually happening there at the bottom of the stack? Is this animal just standing on the edge of the bubble of reality? What are you saying is happening? Whatever it is, it's bizarre and totally unprecedented in anything we've ever observed. At least the idea of an animal standing on the back of another animal is something that resembles something we understand about reality, even if there's no evidence for it applying in this circumstance. But an animal being physically the bottom of reality is a way wilder idea.
Okay, and if you stop, right, and if you want to say that, the whole pile of earth and animals doesn't fall because there is a animal down there that doesn't fall, well, the animals must be special.
Yeah, I would think so. Special in a way that we have no evidence of anything ever being. Why are we believing any of this? Why are we believing weird religious ideas about the way the universe is, handed down from ancient civilizations, with no further thought? And of course, I'm not talking about stacks of animals with the Girffe at the bottom now. I'm talking about stacks of causes with the God at the bottom. See, these ancient civilizations, with the earth on top of a stack of animals, they had a fundamental misconception about what the reality was that they were trying to understand. Specifically, they thought the earth was a flat plane sitting on top of something which is below it, and that the universe has some definite down, that the earth has to sit supported on top of something, because otherwise it will fall. And they assumed that because it seemed so unbelievably intuitive. To them, there was no way that this could be false. And it wasn't really unreasonable. We had no evidence to suggest otherwise. But eventually, through further experience, we realized actually, from a broader view, the way we assumed the universe has to work just isn't how it works. This intuitive, basic understanding doesn't apply anymore. And that's what I suspect might be happening with these first cause arguments, too. They're not based on any actual evidence that this is the way it works, or that the universe has these requirements that you think it has. They're just based on intuition from walking around in the world and going, oh, I dropped the egg off the counter and then it went splat. Which is understandable, but the problem is you're applying it to something so wildly beyond your ability to comprehend at the moment. Just like gravity and the Earth just floating in space would have been way beyond people so far in the past, that you have no reason to really think you know anything about it, other than just it kind of feels right. Am I making the problem clear? It's hard to do, but I'm trying.
Okay?
Okay.
Well, the animals must be special. Okay? Must be special. Must be necessary.
Okay, so instead of questioning whether we really understand what the Earth is and how it's situated in the universe, and whether there really is a stack of animals below it, we're just going to say, well, the Girffe at the bottom must be special, it must be necessary, and call it a day and pretend that we've actually answered a question. Right, I was joking before when I said we should do that. I didn't expect you to turn around and suggest we actually do it.
That's how you stop this silly regression, backward regression to infinity.
No, you stop it by stopping making up bullshit. If you don't have good evidence of how things actually work, stop pretending you know how things actually work. That's how you stop it. You don't just make up some band-aid solution and pretend like that's the final answer. If we were willing to consider that acceptable, we'd all be believing in the Girffe stack now. Because hey guys, we solved it.
Okay?
No.
That is totally logical.
It's not. In no way is that logical. How's the stack of animals not infinite? I guess I'll put a necessary special Girffe at the bottom and that fixes it. That's not logic, it's fantasy.
And anybody would admit it's kind of laughable.
Saying the Girffe is necessary now and therefore that solves it is laughable? Yeah. Yeah, it's completely laughable. It doesn't solve the problem. It's just a made-up answer to try to ignore the problem with the thing you're proposing. It doesn't actually help you.
Right? You will laugh at somebody that tells you that the earth doesn't fall because there's an animal that keeps the earth afloat, right?
Well, no, apparently if you say the animal at the bottom is a necessary animal, then apparently not. Apparently you'll think, oh, that makes perfect sense. I have no more questions about this. It's been solved by definition. That's a perfectly thorough solution, and there's no more thought needed on this subject.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing you do with God, and it's a complete fucking farce.
You cannot go back indefinitely, okay? To make sense of your argument, to not sound laughable, you need to stop somewhere and impose that there's some cause and necessary cause that keeps all the pile up in a logical way.
Yeah, it's really funny that you're equating your ideas with the Earth sitting on top of a stack of animals. Because the solution was not to stick a necessary animal at the bottom. The solution was to learn the shape of the Earth and what gravity is and what space is, and then discard the stack of animals. Your idea of God is an attempt to patch up the problems in trying to think of the universe in a similar way to that. Your understanding of how reality works is very similar to those ancient people's understanding of the Earth sitting on top of the stack of animals. And going back to betting, if I had to put my money somewhere, it would not be on the reality of the special Girffe at the bottom of the stack. It would be on the stack being a misunderstanding. At least in the simplistic sense that makes people think stuff like we need a God at the start of time.
And so the other objection is, well, but then, I'm not saying that there's any cause or any unnecessary cause. I'm simply saying that whatever exists, it is all we see.
Okay, I don't think anybody said that to you. What I do think somebody's probably said to you is that they'll believe in things if there's actual evidence of them. That is, yes, there's lots of stuff we don't know about, but until we have some reason to think we do know about it, there's no reason to think we know about it. I notice a lot of religious arguments come down to things like wordplay about the word necessity, or thinking of the universe like a stack of animals and then you need the special Girffe at the bottom of it. And without something more than that, something more than just your musings while you sit in your empty living room, there's no reason to think that's actually real. That kind of evidence would never be acceptable for some kind of a scientific idea, other than maybe coming up with a hypothesis. At best, I mean, would anybody even want to fund research based on that level of justification? I doubt it. It's just not worth taking very seriously until you have something more interesting to back it up, at least to some basic level.
Okay. Matter, energy is what we observe. Okay. And so that must be necessary.
It could be. There's no sign currently that energy can just disappear. That's the conservation of energy. Does that apply on some level deeper than the universe? I don't know. Maybe.
We don't know why. We don't know why it's necessary, but that's what we see. And so I need to conclude that that's what necessary, that exists, is always existed, and will always exist.
It doesn't seem horribly unreasonable. If you're going to call anything necessary, it seems a lot more reasonable to call that necessary than some extra universal God Girffe.
Well, congratulations, ding, ding, ding. You just proved that you believed in the God that I define.
Yeah? If you want to be that infantile about this, you didn't have to be so roundabout. You could have just pointed at your door back there and said, I define that as God. That's God now. You believe in my God now, because I believe in your door. So if you define God as your door, I believe in your God. But what does that accomplish that's interesting? Well, nothing. This is the kind of thing people do on the playground at elementary school. Hey, do you like to eat chocolate? Yeah, I like chocolate. Oh, well, when I say the word chocolate, I mean poop. You just said you like to eat poop. Ha 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 ha. That's exactly what you're doing with this. This kind of thing hasn't been funny to me in 30 years. Man, your entire channel is Bible videos. This is not all you think God is. You don't think God is matter and energy. And when that kid from the playground asks his mom if he can have some chocolate, he doesn't actually mean, Mom, can I please eat some poop? Cut out the little kid games and say what you actually mean.
I said that God is a necessary being, and you're telling me that matter and energy have always been there, will always be there because they're necessary. Oh, that's your God.
Oh, you like to eat poop. Hey, everybody, this kid likes to eat poop. Wow, I'm clever.
Now you're not an atheist anymore. Congratulations. You believe in this God that I define.
Well, I define an invisible pink donkey on Mars as this salad fork. Actually, wait, this is a dinner fork. No, wait, actually, I define a salad fork as a dinner fork. And you believe in dinner forks, so you believe I have a salad fork. And so now you also believe in my definition of the invisible pink donkey on Mars. Wow, how could you believe something so silly? Look, everybody, this idiot believes in invisible pink donkeys on Mars.
And your God, let me tell you, it's pretty boring. It's a God made up of energy and matter.
Boring. What does boring have to do with anything? Are we talking about how entertaining these ideas are, or are we talking about how true they are? Who gives a shit what words you use or how entertaining you think the ideas are? That has no bearing on the truth. The point of discussing these ideas is to inform each other of what ideas we actually have, and then to inform each other of why we think those ideas accord well with reality. That's what's interesting. If they're boring but accord well with reality, then reality's boring to you. Oh well. Why should reality care how you feel? Your feelings on this matter, your feelings of boredom, are not a relevant concern. This type of decision-making is something you should have left behind in childhood along with the playground word games. Placing importance on something like that over and above the truth says an awful lot about your character.
I'm sorry, I don't like your God.
Teacher, I don't like subtraction. It's boring. Can we just draw pictures and call that math instead?
And if God is just a bunch of matter and energy, I'm sorry, but I'll stick with my God.
Right, so you just openly admit that you don't care what may or may not be actually true. The truth isn't your priority. It's not even a relevant concern. What's important to you in deciding what to believe is that you think it's fun. Well, at least you're honest, for once in this video. I understand now why you make the kind of videos you do, if the only ideas you ever accept are the ones you find sufficiently amusing. Well, that's a great reason for nobody to ever take seriously anything you ever say. Oh, and by the way, your God's less boring, is it? So like I've said for this entire response, there's more to what you think of as God than just what you've said. You're intentionally leaving out elements of the God that you supposedly want people to believe in, to broaden out the definition to include a bunch of stuff that clearly is not the same thing, just to win rhetorical points with snot dribbling 5-year-olds. Yeah, so not only have you just said your way of approaching questions is fundamentally unserious, it's also completely dishonest. If you want me to believe in your God, define it fully. Tell me what God you actually believe in. All of its features, not just cherry-picked ones you think it might share with something you think I might believe, and then maybe we can have an actual conversation. But as it is, you're just yet another liar for religion. And that finally is the end of the video, everyone. Thank you for watching, and if you watched all 3 parts, thank you even more. I know it's a part 3, but even so, before you go, if you would be so kind, please do give the video a like and click subscribe if you haven't. Oftentimes people only do that on the first part or whatever. I get it. It's still helpful on part 3 though. If you like the channel, maybe consider supporting. A couple bucks per video or per month helps a huge amount, and enormous thanks to all of my supporters who've already made that choice. Early access, email list, list.logicked.com, and I'll see you next time.